What if your retire-in-place plan turns into a surprise subscription fee on your house? Illinois' $250 billion pension hole isn't abstract. It's a policy lever aimed at your 2026 tax bill. We're breaking down the before-after bridge. Before, rising taxes felt like a slow boil. After, a statewide property tax could mean thousands more a year. Bridge, the moves happening now that decide whether your town copies Illinois or copies New Jersey's Stay NJ savings. Watch this, and you'll know where relief is real and where it's a mirage that ends on your mortgage statement. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your tax bill didn't explode. It crept in like a subscription you forgot to cancel. So why does 2026 feel different? Because the quiet stuff finally got loud. Cities made retirement promises. They penciled in investment returns that looked great on a slide deck. And when budgets got tight, they leaned on property taxes because you can't move a house to dodge it. That's the whole game. Slow, predictable, and invisible until it isn't. Here's the thing. Pension math runs on assumptions. Funds say they'll earn a certain return, so today's contributions can be smaller. When markets miss those targets, the shortfall doesn't just sit there, it compounds. Add longer lifespans and you get checks going out for more years than the original models planned. Every year those misses stack, the hole deepens, and the bill slides over to you. But here's the catch. Lawmakers sell a smaller number. Ratings analysts run the harsher model. You hear about roughly $130 billion. Moody's runs it and comes back closer to $250 billion. Let that sink in. That gap is not a rounding error. It's the difference between a manageable inconvenience and a lever big enough to yank money out of every parcel in the state. That gap is the pressure cooker under your kitchen table. Property tax is the only faucet that never fully turns off. Sales taxes wobble. Income taxes bounce with jobs. But that faucet? It drips in January, it drips in July, and when pensions run hot, officials reach for that handle first. You don't get a press conference. You get a slightly higher levy and a line on your bill that becomes the new normal. When actuaries discount future payouts, they pick a rate. Use a higher number and the debt looks smaller today. Use a more disciplined rate and the present value balloons. That's why Moody's lands higher. More rigor on the discount rate, less optimism about future gains, more conservative about how long benefits last. It's not politics. It's math with training wheels removed. Walk through a Midwestern block. Assessments nudge up after a hot sales year. Then you notice the school district's levy ticked higher, and the police and fire pensions added their slice. You didn't vote on it at the checkout line. It just shows up. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. Now you're paying what feels like a second mortgage for the privilege of keeping your first one. In parts of Illinois, effective rates already chew into monthly budgets hard. Retirees feel it first because their income doesn't adjust with these pushes. The house is paid off, but the tax isn't. Miss a few payments, and the county doesn't care about your Social Security checks. The lien process does what the lien process does. So, if that was the before, incremental hikes spread across levies and assessments, what happens when someone flips a switch statewide? A lever large enough to cover the delta between the rosy number and the rigorous one? That's when the line item stops hiding in the weeds and walks onto your bill with its own name. Here's the mini payoff. Lawmakers understate risk. Moody's frames the worst-case tab. That upper number is the justification for a broad, direct charge aimed at pension debt. Not a pilot. Not a temporary fix that fades next year. A design built to run for years, pulling from every address because the actuarial schedule says so. And that's where the plan changes. From slow boil to a statewide property tax proposal that lands right on your deed. What happens when the fix isn't local trims? It's a new line on your bill, statewide, with zeros that hurt? That's the pivot. No nickel and diming through levies. A direct charge built to do one thing. Feed pension debt. You don't opt in, it lands and stays. So here's the thing. The Chicago Fed modeled a statewide property tax that runs for years, spreads across every parcel, and wires the cash straight to pension obligations. It's a broad base by design. The math aims to be steady because debt repayment schedules don't like surprises. Think of it like a dedicated toll lane on your tax bill, separate from schools, cops, libraries, ring-fenced for pensions until the amortization clock runs out. Politicians will sell it as stability. No more annual shocks, predictable payments. But here's the catch. When analysts ran the numbers, the predictable payment looked like real money for real households, especially in communities where incomes lag. That gap between the promise and the payment is where the pain lives. Let's make it tangible. A median Illinois homeowner could see an extra yearly charge roughly the size of a used car payment. Not a one-off. Every year, on top of what you already pay. In some suburbs, that's a grand plus. In struggling towns, it's still hundreds that don't care if your roof needs work or your kid needs braces. It just drafts your escrow and calls it a day. The research language flagged significant annual additions and that they vary by community. Translation: there is no flat, friendly number. Where home values sit lower and incomes stretch thin, the percentage bite feels worse. Where assessments run hot, the dollar amount scales up fast. That variability is the quiet trapdoor most folks miss. Meanwhile, other states are racing to throw shields at the problem. New Jersey's Stay NJ hits in 2026 with up to about $6,500 off for homeowners 65 and older, layered on top of Anchor and the Senior Freeze. Montana rebuilt its system with tiered homestead rates on primary homes and long-term rentals, and a separate break for seniors with modest incomes. Ohio is juicing its owner occupancy credit over time and capping the spikes that come when values jump, aiming for billions in savings across a few years. Florida's playing with a big swing, a proposed $200,000 exemption for non-school property taxes, which would be a major shift if voters bless it. Plus, it still has Homestead, Save Our Home's 3% cap, and targeted senior exemptions in certain counties. New York expanded SHE so localities can cut assessed value for seniors, up to a large share if adopted, stacking with STAR and veterans programs. And Wyoming? There's a 2026 ballot push aiming at a 50% property tax cut for residents who meet the timeline, on top of an existing mix of exemptions and refunds. So, which path lands on your mortgage statement? The Illinois-style levy that's simple, blunt, and statewide? Or the layered shield strategy, where relief stacks but depends on age, income, or whether your county even opts in? You're not ready for how uneven that feels in practice. Here's the mini payoff. The scramble is real. New Jersey, Montana, Ohio, Florida, New York, Wyoming. Actual moves on the board for 2026. But the protections aren't universal. Income caps block some middle earners. Age limits exclude younger households carrying big payments. Local opt-ins make 2 blocks in the same metro play by different rules. So, here's the bridge. How to read your state's next move before it lands in your mailbox. Start by watching 3 dials: who gets protected, how long the protection lasts, and whether a new statewide line item shows up anyway.